Hello, it's Parm King, the Dungeon Master for Legends of Barovia, and today we're going to be doing some maps for Curse of Strahd, and particularly the Wolfden area. I'm going to talk a little bit about the maps I use, both Theater of the Mind as well as a couple of battle maps. We'll go through each of those. And I'm also going to be talking about how I incorporated the Wolfden into my Curse of Strahd campaign. It's one of those areas that some players just don't get to, or they don't have any reason to go to unless, whether it's through the Taroka reading or there's some item there that you need. But I really like the area and I really want to weave it into my campaign. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I did. So let's first mention, where is the Wolfden on the map? If this is the map my players use in Foundry, and that they all have access to, it gives them kind of an approximate location where things are, and it helps them as they're moving through the adventure. Now, the Wolfden in my game is up in this area. In fact, I actually have it marked here. There it is. There's the Wolfden there. This, if you go to I'll link to my DM Master's Guide on how I use this map for Foundry, as well as for player journals. If you click on here, this is all the people they ran into. Is this player notes and that they're able to use. So getting to the Wolfden, well, they can get to the Wolfden through a path through the woods. There's no real trail there. And in my campaign, Kresk is kind of like right at the edge of that tree line. It's really cold, snow starting to set in, and they have to go up to the mountains in the Wolfden. So there's snow involved in the Wolfden. Now, on the way to the Wolfden, I have three different Theater of the Mind maps, as well as a battle map. Let's do the first one here. The first Theater of the Mind map I use, or you can use, I didn't use this one actually, but you could use this, is I just have a river scene, a snow river scene here. And I use this map is if they're heading towards the Wolfden. Let me show you on the map. From this area over here, if they're crossing from kind of the Wizard's Tower towards the Wolfden, if there's a river crossing or whatever, then I'll use this river Theater of the Mind map. And again, in my Theater of the Mind maps, I place my characters in the lower area. And Theater of the Mind is just that it's more role playing, right? If there's going to be another NPC or something, I use Theater of the Mind maps. The maps that I did use is they left Kresk and headed north right into the mountains right away. And we used this snow scene here for our Theater of the Mind map. And I think you can hear a little bit of the blizzard sound in the background. What I did here, in fact, I still have my players loaded in here, is they found some stuff along the snowy path as they were hunting and looking for the location of the Wolfden. Now, if you have a battle encounter that involves combat, I have a battle map here, which I call Snowpath, and you can use this here. This is just a battle map, kind of a heads down display if you're going to have an encounter here with werewolves or wolves or something in a snowy encounter. I did add a new scene and new encounter on the way to the Wolfden. It kind of weaves into my story, which I'll tell you about here. So on the way to the Wolfden, there's another Theater of the Mind map, which I call Cabin. And there's a cabin on the way to the Wolfden that they run into. And in the cabin is Skenis. And in my campaign, the wolf pack is kind of split in two. Skenis and his son is Emil were the natural leaders of the wolf pack, and they were kind of pushed out. And Skenis is now living in this cabin, and his son has kind of disappeared, has been captured actually, and is somewhere else located actually in Salinka Pass, and I can tell you about that. I took that idea from Lunch Break Heroes idea, and I kind of expanded on that. That's where Emil, the other werewolf, has been captured, and he's being held in a tower in Salinka Pass. When we cover that map section, I'll talk about it. So this is an encounter where I thought this encounter is pretty cool for a couple of reasons, and depending if you want to use my storyline or your own, having this older werewolf living by himself, kind of like a hermit in this cabin, allows for several different things, depending on how you want to play it. Number one is this can be a location where the players can interact with a werewolf, learn some werewolf lore, maybe some local lore related to either Kresk or even to Strahd or other things related to the werewolves, which is a kind of what I call a low impact encounter. It's a very low impact and very low probability of combat. He's an older guy. He's living by himself. He's a hermit. He has some information. It's also a place where the players can come and rest and build some rapport. It's a good scene for role playing. So this is the cabin scene that I use here. The entrance scene is another map scene. This is actually from JamesRPGART.com. He has an animated version. I use a static version in this. Again, it's a Theater of the Mind map. And I'm using my own lighting elements here. You can see there's a light element here making the light flicker. And there's a guard here, one of the guards here that they encounter out in front of the map. Again, you can hear the sound there. Now, with Curse of Strahd, there's actually only one map that comes with the werewolf den. So these other maps are ones that I've added, the Theater of the Mind maps, and then the Snow Battle map if you need to use that, and then this wolf entrance scene. And this is the lead up to the wolf den. Now, in my campaign, I wove in a backstory. I'll put a link to the backstory of my players. Two of my players, which are blood hunters, their father had lycanthropy, and he heard about this werewolf group that had a ritual called the taming to control the werewolf beast within, so that if you have lycanthropy, you're able to control it. You're able to bring it out when you want to, and be able to harness that power a little bit. So the father had disappeared, had gone to Barovia in search of this ritual to help control the beast within, go through the taming ritual, and my players now have a reason to go to the werewolf den, is to find their father. And that's the primary reason why they went here, is because they were searching for two of my players' fathers. So I'll link to the backstory. I made a video backstory about those characters. I'll link that down below so you can see that. So let's go to the official map of the werewolf den and what I did in Foundry here. Now, one of the things I like to do always is in Foundry is if there's a key on the map, I highlight that independently, north, south, east, and west. I also blocked off this map. This is a separate entrance which my players were able to enter off. You can see I blocked that off. So I had one group of players. What happened was my players split up in two. Two of them tried to enter in through the main entrance, and the other ones were coming in through the top entrance up here. And it got a little dicey. Let's just say there was some combat in here. In my werewolf den map, you can see all my walls and some of the things that I did in my lighting elements in here. One of the things that I like to do is to help limit the fog of war range is I'll use these diagonal lines so that my players, they're invisible walls. I use them on stairs a lot, so my players can't see too much further in there, because sometimes their fog of war range gives them the ability to see farther than they normally should. So I'll just show you, I have a character here, and you can see as she comes up to the stairs, she can't see above the stairs, but when she comes up there, she can see up here, and then she can go down the stairs here. And so it's just for range limitations. Now, one of the things that I did do on my map here, you can see I also put some colored water in here. You can see all my lightings and candle. In fact, I did a lighting video that actually shows this map, which I'll put a link down below. One of the big things I did change in this map was this area here with the cages, and this is where the taming ritual is. And so in my situation is if you have lycanthropy, you get locked in one of these cells. There's a statue here. The werewolves come. There's a ritual. As you're locked in the cell, you turn into a werewolf going through this ritual. If you survive this ritual, then you've survived the taming ritual and you can control lycanthropy. Through the process, you take damage, you're rolling damage as you go through this process to control the lycanthropy. Now, what I did do was my 2 blood hunters whose father had lycanthropy throughout the campaign. I was rolling pretty much every session with a very, very high DC check that if either one of them had inherited the curse through their family bloodline. And literally maybe 2 or 3 sessions before we got to the wolf den, one of my blood hunters, Irvon, started showing the first signs. They call it the changing. They call it the rising. I'm sorry. The rising is when you start first seeing signs of lycanthropy. And you have technically until the next full moon to control this lycanthropy. Otherwise, it starts taking over. And that's kind of the lore that I wove into this. So the lighting effect here that I have turned on and I turn it off is the ritual that goes on. Here, somebody's locked. There's a person that's locked into one of the cages. And when the ceremony goes on, this is the lighting effect that I have. I actually also used a soundtrack in here called the haka. In New Zealand, there's the Maoris, which are the natives to New Zealand, and there's a war dance. And if you follow international rugby, the New Zealand All Black team, they actually do the haka war dance. The song is called the haka. And so I slowed it down and I altered it and I used that as my soundtrack for the taming ritual. And I think I actually still have it loaded in here. Yeah, here it is. I think this is it. This might be it. Yes. So you get the idea. You put that music during the ceremony. As you're running the ceremony, you roll the dice for the damage and you also roll dice to see if the taming ritual did work. So that's pretty much it for my werewolf maps, my the river, snow, and cabin scene, the entrance, and then the wolf den scene. The wolf den map that comes with the campaign. One of the things I do want to mention on the map, a lot of the maps that come through with the campaign are in 10-foot squares instead of 5-foot. One of the things that I do recommend is reconfigure the map, and I'll just show you what I did here. I'll just put this up really high so you can see is I regridded the map to 5-foot square. So the actual square on the map is 10 foot, but I regrid it to 5 foot to make it easier for my characters to move through there. What I do recommend is when you do that, I'll just leave all the grids on there so you can see what it looks like. I always block out my grid, but make sure that the grid scale, the units is 5 foot right in here. So you can actually see the light grid scale is what I did. So I rechanged the scale from 10 feet to 5 feet. Highly recommend doing that. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to get your players through this map if you're using Foundry or another roll-top system. Well, anyway, that's the Wolf Den maps. Thank you very much for watching. This is Parm King, and may all your rolls be critical 20s. Until next time.